האם זה באמת סגולה בדוקה? הסגולה ללמוד בזה?
Erev Tov, good evening, Dober V'Yetcher. We are in the Zera Shimshon on Parsha Emor. We're looking at Os Yud Gimel, section 13. And before we begin, let's take a look at a pasuk from our Parsha. This comes from in Parsha Emor. There's a long discussion of the Mo'adim, of the holidays, of the special days during the year when we have special mitzvos. And so here comes a pasuk that's dealing with the holiday of Sukkot, Chag HaSukkos. This is Perek Chav Gimel pasuk Mem. Ulekachtem lochem bayom harishon, and you should take for yourself on the first day of the holiday of Sukkot, pre-eitz hadar, the fruit of an esrog tree or a beautiful tree, kapos timorim, branches from a date tree, meaning a palm tree, va'anaf eitz avos, and a branch of the hadas tree, va'arve nochal, and also branches from a brook willow. So we take that, we refer, of course, to that as those as the dalid minim, the four species which make up the mitzvah of shaking the lulav and esrog and the hadasim and the aravos. And what should we do once we take those things? The pasuk continues, "Usamachtem lifnei Hashem Elokechem." You should rejoice in front of Hashem, your God, Shivas Yomim, for 7 days. So there's a special mitzvah in that pasuk teaches us of simcha, of rejoicing during the holiday of Sukkot. And the Zera Shimshon is going to talk about simcha and Sukkot in this piece. So let us jump right in. Again, Parsha Emor, Os Yud Gimel. Ba-Mesorah, in the Mesorah, that means in the Masoretic notes. So very early members of Chazal were put together something called the Mesorah, information and notes, Masoretic notes that were handed down, which dealt with things like how many times certain words appeared in Tanakh or in the Torah or in Tanakh, and in what forms the words appeared, and how many psukim there were in the Torah and in different parshios and things like that. So in the Mesorah, in those notes, it states, Ulesimcha telos, the word, in quotation marks, Ulesimcha, appears 3 times in Tanakh. And now we're going to hear the 3 different psukim that contain the word ulesimcha, although you'll notice the second one, it actually is slightly different because it's ulesimchas, but you'll see here are the 3 times that the word ulesimcha appears. First pasuk comes from Shoftim, and it's dealing with the story of Shimshon, the great hero of the Jewish people, Shimshon, and how the Plishtim were able to use a woman to seduce him and cut off his hair and capture him. And so they held a huge celebration. That's what this pasuk is going to tell us about, the huge celebration that the Philistines, the Plishtim, had after they captured Shimshon, who of course was destroying them in battle after battle. He was their great nemesis. Okay, the pasuk, V'sarnei Plishtim, and the governors are the rulers of the Plishtim. Ne'esfu, they gathered, lehalel, to rejoice, lifnei Dagon Eloheihem, before Dagon, their god. That was the name of their chief idol. Ulis simcha, and to rejoice. Now, if you look at this is a side point, but if you look at the actual pasuk in Sefer Shoftim, this you can see is not a verbatim quote, because instead of saying Nesvu lahalel, they gathered to rejoice or gathered to celebrate, it actually says Nesvu lizboach zevach godol, they gathered to offer a great sacrifice. But the gist of the pasuk, it's a kind of a paraphrase of the pasuk. The most important part is the last word in the pasuk, ulis simcha. The Plishtim came together for simcha, to rejoice that they had captured Shimshon their great enemy. Next pasuk. So that's the first time you see u'lesimcha in Tanakh. Next pasuk. Vayehi devarcha li. This is from Sefer Yirmiyah, and the Navi says, "And your word was to me lisason, for joy, u'lesimchas levavi, and for the rejoicing of my heart." So the Navi was saying to Hashem, when you spoke to me, when you gave me nevuos, when you sent me prophecies, your words brought me great joy and great simcha to my heart. That's the second time that we see u'lesimcha in the form of u'lesimchas levavi. Third pasuk comes from Koheles, u'lesimcha ma zo osa. And in terms of rejoicing, what does it do? That pasuk is where Shlomo HaMelech in Sefer Koheles says that when people rejoice, what does that really accomplish? What does that do for a person? So those are the three psukim where the word u'lesimcha, or in one case u'lesimchas, appear. Now the Zera Shimshon begins to comment. V'yesh lefarsha al chag simchasenu. And we can explain that all three of these psukim refer in some way to our holiday of rejoicing, which is Chag HaSukkos, Chag Simchasenu. And now he's going to connect the psukim to Sukkos. Ki shivim parei hachag, the 70 oxen that were offered during the holiday of Sukkos, heim keneged shivim umos. They correspond to the 70 nations of the world. When we bring the 70 oxen during the holiday of Sukkot, Chazal teach us that corresponds to the 70 nations of the world, and we're bringing the korbanos on their behalf. Uchemoshe amru zichronim levracha, as Chazal, as the rabbis stated, you can see it's from Maseches Sukkah. Oy lahem leumos, woe to the nations of the world, she'ibdu, that they suffered a great loss, ve'enam yodim ma ibdu, and they don't know, aren't even aware of what they lost. Meaning that when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, the nations of the world suffered a profound, terrible loss because the Jewish people could no longer bring korbanos. There was no more Beis HaMikdash, which means we could not bring their korbanos during the holiday of Sukkot, and that included the 70 parim, the 70 oxen that were brought on behalf corresponding to the 70 nations of the world. So the nations of the world had suffered a loss that they weren't even aware of. They weren't even aware of the terrible ramifications to them by the loss of the Beis HaMikdash and the bringing of the korbanos, including the korbanos on their behalf during Sukkot. Mishum hachi, because of this fact, V'sarnei plishtim, when the pasuk from Shoftim talks about the rulers of the plishtim gathering together, dahainu ha'umos, that represents the nations of the world. That pasuk can be understood not just to be talking about the plishtim when they celebrated over the capture of Shimshon, but it's talking about the nations of the world celebrating. Ne'esvu yachad, and they gathered together bimei hachag, as if it was during the holiday of Sukkot, meaning they rejoiced over the fact that the Jews celebrated the holiday of Sukkot, lahalel ulesimcha, and they celebrated and had joy. Lomar shehem kamo Yisrael, because they said, the nations of the world, that is, said, we're like the Jewish people. The Jewish people bring korbanos to gain closeness to Hashem and favor from Hashem and blessings from Hashem. And during Sukkot, 70 korbanos are brought for us. So during this time period, we're rejoicing because we're equal to the Jewish people. We're finding favor through these korbanos that the Jews are bringing on our behalf, and we are going to be blessed by Hashem. Ve'ein hefresh beinenu uveinehem, and there's no difference between them and between us, meaning that the umos ha'olam, mistakenly thought that because these sacrifices were being brought on their behalf during the holiday of Sukkot, that meant that they were equal in terms of favor and in terms of relationship with Hashem. They were equal to Klal Yisrael. So that's what the first pasuk that has the word ulesimcha is referring to. Omnam, however, next paragraph, Yihye devorcha li lesoson ulesimchas levavi. The next pasuk that is brought that has the word ulesimcha in it, the pasuk from Yirmiyah is functions as a corrective. It corrects the mistake that the Umos Olam made. And the pasuk says, your word was to me for rejoicing of my heart. Ki Yom Shmini Atzeres. This is a reference to the day of Shmini Atzeres, which takes place at the end of the holiday of Sukkot. Sukkot and Torah, according to the Torah, lasted for 7 days, and Shmini Atzeres was an additional holiday tacked on at the end to be celebrated at the 8th day. Shirotza Lomar, the whole idea of Shmini Atzeres is to say, Atzarti eschem lefanai, I have held you back before me. Meaning, Hashem says during the holiday of Sukkot, when korbanos are brought for the Umos Olam, they can justifiably claim that they are also being included in some way in the blessings of the holiday. But then that stops, Sukkot stops, any connection to the Umos Olam ends, and now Shmini Atzeres is only for Klal Yisrael because of my special relationship, my unique relationship with Klal Yisrael, with the Jewish people, that I do not share at all with the Umos Olam. So that's the meaning of Shmini Atzeres, and that's what's being referred to when the Navi said, your words were to me, not to everyone, to me. And to Simchas Levavi, they brought joy to my heart, only my heart, not to the Umos Olam. That's a reference to Shmini Atzeres. Oso Yom Ogil ve'esmecha bechasdecha. On that day, I will celebrate and rejoice in your kindness. Yihye devorcha li, and your word will be to me, le'atzmi, to myself, to only me, lesason, for celebration, v'chule. So the second time ulesimcha appears, it straightens out, so to speak, the Umos Olam, and it says to them, you're celebrating during Sukkot because of the korbanos that we bring for you on your behalf. Well, please keep in mind that that does not make you our equal in terms of our special relationship with Hashem. Adarab, on the contrary, the next pasuk of Ulesimcha shows that we, the Jewish people and the Jewish people only, have a special relationship with Hashem that you do not have. Continuing to the third pasuk about Ulesimcha. Uvechol zos, nevertheless, even with all of this, Hasimcha ata, celebrating now, she'ein Beis HaMikdash kayom, when the Beis HaMikdash doesn't exist, no longer exists, ma to'eles li, of what benefit is that to me? And that's represented by the words from Koheles, L'simcha ma zo osa. In terms of rejoicing, what does it do? So the pasuk in Koheles, the third and final place in Tanakh, when the word Ulesimcha appears, tells us that even though it's true that for so long the Jewish people were able to celebrate their special closeness to Hashem, and they're still able to celebrate it, nonetheless, something was lost. Part of our celebration and the intensity of our celebration was lost when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. That is really the first major point that the Zera Shimshon wants to make. He wanted to bring in the places in the Torah that use the word Ulesimcha, connected to Zaman Simcha Seinu, the holiday of Sukkot, and to show how each pasuk is teaching us something important and symbolic about our celebration of Sukkot and our special relationship with Hashem. Now the Zera Shimshon continues to a related but new point. Top of the second column. Uvazeh yotza lanu ta'am. Through this that we've discussed, through these ideas that we've just discussed, yotze lanu ta'am, the reason for a certain thing comes out. Lama menaschen mayim bechag. Why do we do the special water libation ceremony during the holiday of Sukkot? That is a reference to the special ceremony that was done each morning in the Beis Hamikdash during the holiday of Sukkot, when water was poured onto the Mizbeach. Normally, korbanos were brought on the Mizbeach, animals were sacrificed there. The korban mincha, the flour, our grain-based offerings were brought there. There was nisuch hayayin, there was wine poured onto the Mizbeach. Oil was one of the things that were brought. But on Sukkot, we do a special ceremony of pouring water, nisuch hamayim, water pouring onto the Mizbeach. Why was that done during Sukkot? So the Zera Shimshon says that is connected to what we've been talking about. Shehoil sha'anu makrivim al umosa olim shivim parim. Since during the holiday of Sukkot we bring these 70 oxen as sacrifices on behalf of that correspond to the nations of the world, lachein anu minaschen hamayim. Therefore, we also do the water pouring on the Mizbeach. Lomar, to say, Kimos yomusu vechamayim hanigarim arza. This is a pasuk from Sefer Shmuel Beis, as you can see, and this pasuk means we will surely die, and it will be like water which is poured, which is spilled onto the ground, or which is flowing by onto the ground. Meaning that when we die, our lives are over, our lives in this world end, and they can't be retrieved. It's just like water being spilled on the ground and being soaked into the ground. And that pasuk, the Zera Shimshon is saying, is a reference to what we're saying to the nations of the world symbolically by doing the Nisuch HaMayim ceremony. We're saying to them, you're all puffed up and you're all proud of the fact that we're bringing korbanos on your behalf, you 70 nations of the world. Well, we pour the water to again show you and demonstrate to you that you will ultimately pass away and be like water spilled on the ground. You do not have the nitzchias, the eternity of the Jewish people. Next paragraph. Umishum hachi. And because of this, HaTorah ramza lanu nisuch hamayim b'siman boz. Because of these ideas, the Torah hints to us about the nisuch hamayim ceremony using the symbol of the word boz. This comes from the Zohar, this idea, and the word boz itself is being used based on a phrase in Shir Hashirim, where it says, Boz Yavozu Lo. And what the pasuk over there is talking about is that the Shlomo HaMelech in Shir Hashirim is talking about the intense relationship between a man and a woman. And the man is saying about the woman that her love is so passionate, so intense for him that even if someone else, another suitor, came and offered her all the wealth that he could possibly give her, boz yavozu lo, it would be an embarrassment to him. It would bring shame on him because she would utterly reject the other suitor because of her love for the man. And that, of course, represents the love between Hashem and the Jewish people. And so the Zohar, the Kabbalah, there's a Kabbalistic teaching that those words, boz yavozu lo, refer to the ceremony of Nisuch HaMayim, and the Zera Shimshon is going to explain to us the connection now. The anu mipnei she'oz ha'umos misgoyim b'shivim parim, because then during the holiday of Sukkot, the nations of the world are very proud about their 70 oxen. The anu romzim lohem, and we send a hint to them. Shekemo shehatahom misgoeh Bahamon Galov, the same way that the deep waters of the world take pride in their multitudinous waves, Be'ez Nisuch HaMayim, at the time when the water is poured on the Mizbeach, meaning that the oceans of the world, the oceans and the seas of the world, feel represented by the pouring of water, their element, on the Mizbeach, and so they take great pride in that. Aval hu ne'etzar v'nechbash, but the oceans of the world are held back and are prevented. Shelo ya'avor givul hachol. They're not able to pass over their border of the sand, meaning as powerful as the nations are, and as proud as they become when water is poured on the Mizbeach, nonetheless, they are limited by the Brios HaOlam, by the rules in which Hashem created the world, by the Teva that Hashem instituted in the world. The seas stay in their places, and they can't get past the sand of the beaches around them. Of course, we know that sometimes the water comes up and can flood a certain area, but in general, that doesn't change the general natural law that Hashem created, that the oceans stay in their places, and they don't come up and cover the land. Hashem, all the way back in the beginning of the Bria, separated the water, made it recede into its places around the world, and no longer allowed it to cover the land. Af anu kain, so we, Klal Yisrael, are like that. Av sheyavru aleinu hamayim hazedonim, even when the treacherous waters, meaning the waters of the Umos HaOlam, representing the Umos HaOlam, pass over us. Im kol zeh, nonetheless, im yitain ish es kol heon beso ba'ava. Here's the pasuk we mentioned before. If a man will give all of the wealth of his house ba'ava, in love, to this woman who he's trying to pursue, v'chule, meaning etc., the rest of the words from that pasuk, boz yavuzu lo, he will be fully shamed. He will certainly be embarrassed and shamed by her rejection. And that's what will happen when the waters of the Umos HaOlam, when they try and, so to speak, engulf us, and they try and subdue us and submerge us in their treacherous waters. Hashem will say, Boz yavuzu lo. You Umos HaOlam will be ashamed because of what you're doing. I will never let you replace the Jewish people, God forbid, or subdue them. Lefi sheyadua, because it is known, meaning known in the Kabbalistic world, it's known to Kabbalah, shekoach klipas ha'umos, the strength of the impure shell of the nations of the world, nisgaber al yedei shlosha inyanim, is strengthened by three things. Hanirmozim beosios boz, which are hinted to in the word boz. So this word boz is a Kabbalistically a power house of a word. The word boz actually contains allusions to the three things that strengthen the power, the impurity, the power of the kochos hatuma, of the impurity of the umos ha'ol. Ha'inyan harishon, moving to the bottom paragraph in this column on the left. The first issue is al yedei chorban bayis hamikdash. When the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, that brought great strength and power to the Tuma Umos HaOlam, to the impure powers of the nations of the world. Besod, and this is secretly hinted to in a pasuk, a pasuk from Mishlei, V'shifcha ki sirash gevirta. The pasuk over there says one of the bad things that can happen, that's bad for the world, is when a maid inherits the position of her master. So the simple meaning of that pasuk is that if you have, let's say, a queen, and she's ruling a province, an area, a country, And then something happens, some kind of crazy turnaround happens, and she is deposed, and her maid takes her place and inherits her position. That's a terrible thing for the world because a maid does not know how to rule. And also, Chazal, in explaining this idea, say that a maid would be incredibly cruel in power, as opposed to a queen who understands how to rule with both firmness, but also mercy and compassion. So that's a bad thing. And that pasuk refers to what happens when the Umos HaOlam try to replace Bnei Yisrael. When they get power and become too strong, then they try to replace Klal Yisrael, and that's bad for the world. V'hoyu shnei chorbanin. There were two times to the two Beis Hamikdashes, the two temples were destroyed. V'zohi habeis shel boz. And that's the meaning or the symbolism of the letter Beis in the word boz. So the Beis, of course, the letter Beis, of course, equals 2, and it represents the 2 times the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The first and second Beis Hamikdash were destroyed, and that gave the Koach HaTuma, the powers of impurity in the Umos HaOlam, great strength. Next paragraph. V'hasheni, the second thing that gives the Tuma of the Umos HaOlam strength, al yedei hano'o shel ha'olam hazeh, comes about through the pleasures of this world. She Yisrael nimshochen acharehen, because the Jewish people can be drawn after pursuit of those pleasures, v'chotin, and commit sins, do averas, transgressions, v'hein shita yomin dechol. And when does this happen? It happens during the 6 days of the week, meaning on Shabbos, there's a mitzvah for us to have oneg Shabbos and enjoy the pleasures of this world. It's the rest of the 6 days of the week when we try and pursue pleasures, and we're not supposed to. They take us away from doing mitzvos. They can take us away from study of Torah. And we're not supposed to be pursuing the pleasures of this world during those 6 days of the week. Dishisa alfei shenin have alma, and that and those 6 days occur every week during the 6,000 years that our world is intended to exist. You can see that's based on a Gemara in Sanhedrin where Chazal say that the world as we know it was established to last for 6,000 years. And so every week there are 6 days when the Jews are supposed to not be focused on pursuing the pleasures of this world. And if they do so, that's a bad thing. V'ha'olam hazeh shel ha'umos, because this world was given to the nations of the world to enjoy. And that's their pursuit. That's not supposed to be our pursuit. V'hainu havav shel boz, and this is represented by the letter vav, which has a numerical value of 6 in the word boz. So the 6 reflects both the 6 days of the week and also the 6,000 years of the world. And it tells us that during that time, if Bnei Yisrael pursues the pleasures of this world, which is really the domain of the Umos HaOlam, then that will give the Umos HaOlam strength. Klal Yisrael should be pursuing Torah and mitzvos, as we said, and not pursuing the pleasures of this world. Next paragraph, V'hashlishi, top of the column on the left. And the third thing that strengthens the Tumah of the Umos HaOlam, al yedei hashiva shemos, comes about through the 7 names, sheyesh la Yetzer Hara, which belong to the Yetzer Hara. When we think of the Yetzer Hara, we might just think of the Yetzer Hara, that term or that phrase. But the Gemara, you can see it's a Gemara in Maseches Sukkah. The Gemara says that there are 7 names given to the Yetzer Hara, and the Gemara goes through the different names that are given in the different sources. For example, the first name given to the Yetzer Hara is the word Ra, evil. And that comes from a pasuk in Bereshis, in which Hashem says, Yetzer lev ha'adam ra min urav, the inclination of a person, the heart of a person is evil from his youth. So the word Ra is a name given to the Yetzer Hara. And different sources, different people, Moshe is quoted and David HaMelech is quoted. Different people are quoted as referring to the Yetzer Hara using different words. For example, the word tameh, impure, the word oral, uncircumcised, is the word Moshe uses. So 7 different terms are used to refer to the Yetzer Hara. Shehu hanocha shel shivoration, and this is a reference. This also refers to the primordial snake, the Nachash from the time of Adam and Chava, which Chazal present as having 7 heads. Veheim machatim es ha'adam, and they, all these different forms of the Yetzer Hara, cause people to sin. Vahainu hazayin shel boz, and that's represented by the letter, the last letter in the word boz, the zayin, which stands for, which has the numerical value of 7. So the Beis is 2. That's the 2 destructions of the Beis Hamikdash. The Vav are the 6 days of the week, and also the 6,000 years of this world. And the Zion represents the 7 names of the Yetzer Hara. And those 3 things included in the word boz, are represented by the word boz, all bring great power to the Koach HaTuma of the Umos Olam, of the nations of the world. Last paragraph. Ve'af al pichein, nonetheless, Anu botchen b'Hashem, we trust in Hashem, sheyatzilenu miyodam, that He will save us from their hands, even though the nations of the world are very strong, and their koach hatuma, their impure power, is extremely strong, and it becomes more powerful through different types of events and things that happen, represented by the word boz. Nonetheless, we trust that Hashem will always protect us from them. V'yiskayim hakosov, and the pasuk in Shir Hashirim will be fulfilled. Boz yavuzu lo. This power of boz, yavuzu lo, it will be put to shame. It will be overpowered, and it will be destroyed by Hashem and His protection of the Jewish people. Yashar Koch to joining in the learning of Zera Shimshon this week. We look forward to learning together, God willing, next week in the Zera Shimshon.